I don't even know what time it is. I just wear the watch cause I'm dialed in. Trying for the spot, told them try again. Money in a flock, where it's flying in. Yeah, flying in.
That's pretty cool. You can even take that bed off and just throw some wood down and make a flatbed, whatever truck.
I could.
I've thought about that. It look kind of cool.
Yeah. Apparently it's a little bit of work with all the wiring now they have in the beds and the
Really?
bumper and all that.
Huh.
I had a 94 Dodge Dakota that I was doing fuel pump, and I did some leaf springs on it, and taking the bed off was like
Yeah,
piece
because
of
they
cake.
attach it all to the side
Piece of
nowadays or whatever.
So they attached it to the frame, but then I just had two rear lights, and they have plugs right on the side, so taking it off was no problem.
Oh, cool.
But these would not be so easy because this actually
Yeah.
has sensors. It has
Yeah, the
license plate lights.
Yep. And I had to put before we went out of town, I put oh my gosh, what do you call them? I airbags.
Yeah.
Put airbags in the back of the
Yeah.
Tundra, and so much of that wiring harness and brake lines and all those things like are attached to the bed,
Yeah.
not the frame.
Yeah.
You know, in the back of that thing. So yeah, that would be tough.
So I don't know. I'm not in a big rush to do it. I'm a big proponent. I'm not spending money on things that I don't need.
Yeah.
The door on the back won't unlatch, so that's a little bit of a deal, but
Just one side.
not enough. It won't unlatch at all. So the door is the back latch is just basically wedged together because of the dent.
Oh, you mean a tailgate?
Yeah, tailgate.
Oh, okay, okay. I thought you meant
Tailgate's
like
on.
one of the rear
Yeah,
doors to get in the
yeah.
cab.
So it's stuck that way, so it won't come down. But I don't really care.
That's cool. I wrote some notes on the way over
Yeah,
because I didn't really know what to do. You know,
I got.
What to
we
talk
got
about.
lots
Um,
of stuff.
But I kind of wrote down some notes about like building a kingdom-minded business. What are your thoughts on that? Like doing that kind of as a starter topic.
I think that's great.
Okay.
I can go along with. I'm trying to build out a framework for my business coaching because
Yeah.
I've struggled with kind of what I'm going to focus on,
Yeah.
and I've come up with the thing I want to focus on is self-sabotage. Is the issues that people experience in business are usually personal. They're not an employee. They're not a lack of an employee. But the lack of those things or the existence of those things usually are coming from me.
Right.
And this also would be the same of an employee. An employee, has their own issues. What is it about them that makes them continue to get fired? Why is it that somebody can't get a business off the ground, and when they get close, it tanks?
Yeah.
And
Or even like discontentment issues.
well, there's discontentment, but there's defensiveness. There's one is called I can't remember now right off the top of my head, but it's basically optimism, over optimism, where we tend. I say we. This isn't my self-sabotaging trait, but the ability to kind of suppress reality because if I accept this reality, then I can't have what I'm dreaming, what my vision is.
Oh, okay.
And,
gotcha. Kind of unrealistic expectations.
Well, it's unrealistic
But in
expectations,
a little different form of that.
but it's also like I can give you an example working with a real estate investor where he would watch his cash flow, but he wouldn't look to where the cash is going. And then he also didn't want to hire a CFO because he was concerned that individual would prevent him from spending money when he wanted to spend it. And then
he turns around at the end like, hey, why do we not have money?
Exactly.
There's the cash flow is here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
the self-sabotage was basically he wanted the freedom to be able to buy something whenever he wanted to buy it. And what went along with that was the idea that every deal was the last good deal.
Yeah.
And
Is it like there are no other opportunities out there, or
right,
that there aren't opportunities that are this good?
right.
Because
But he would be in the
whatever.
wrong business if that were true. So
Right.
it's a lie he's told himself in order to do what he wants to do.
Yeah.
But the self-sabotage is that what it ends up doing is crippling his business, frustrating him, frustrating his employees, high turnaround. And then when talking to me, it's, I don't understand what's going on. But as soon as you start talking about where the money's going, you know, why don't you slow down? Why don't you allow this business to snowball instead of, you know, starting with a snowman? Maybe let's build one.
Yeah. for
And my theme song is going to be, "Do you want to build a snowman?" but from a Christian perspective, obviously,
But from the bottom up, not from the head down.
right? But
Yeah.
from a Christian perspective, you are wanting to do something more faith-based. And one of the things that I want to open up opportunities with people is saying, this is very hard.
Yeah.
Like taking lifelong habits that are built on sometimes trauma. I know it's a buzzword. I think it's used way too much.
Yeah.
And the definition is way too broad now.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But I do believe there's such a thing. How your upbringing, how you were taught to think. And I'm not even saying that everybody's taught to think badly. But one personality, you know, I can have two guys from the same family, and one thinks that he grew up in hell, and the other one thinks he had the greatest family experience ever.
Right.
And so a lot of that is interpretation and self-affliction, you know, and which is not generally looked well upon when you hold people accountable,
Mm-hmm.
which is why I think a lot of therapy isn't actually working.
Mm.
And from a biblical perspective,
Why do you say that? Because therapy it's not addressing the issues that need to be changed?
It's
Or is
validating.
Okay, it's validating.
So it's saying
the
you
issue.
experienced
Yeah, okay.
trauma. You know, your truth is, you know, what you experienced was your reality, and this, you know, this person, this circumstance, this whatever, you didn't deserve that. And you know, I'm not here to say that people deserve to be mistreated,
Sure.
but by
That happened, and we're here. It can't unhappen.
if
How
we
do-
want to
how
get
do we-
philosophical,
How do we
about
move
it,
forward from here,
Right.
from the framework we understand from our past,
Exactly.
whether that's in business from prior whatever experiences or everything we bring from childhood, which
Right.
everyone does.
Everybody
even
does.
if they don't want to admit it, you know,
Absolutely.
we bring a lot of things from childhood.
Yeah, we do.
And if you don't think you do, then get married, and then you realize, you know, you live in such close quarters that you're like, wow, what's wrong with me? Like,
Yeah.
you know, like you recognize a lot of
Yeah.
things that you wouldn't have recognized otherwise.
Right.
When
And-
you know, single or whatever. But,
Yeah, you know, if you get philosophical about it, the past doesn't exist. Nobody's back there. You know, we are only right now. Right?
Yeah.
And, the
and
future
nobody's
doesn't-
thinking about that as much as you are.
Right.
Like, and so that's one of the
So-
things I've had to come to grips with as well, is like anything like and probably an ADHD thing, but you know, the things that run through my head and like, oh, I wish I wouldn't have said that. I wish I wouldn't have done that. I wish I
Yeah.
wouldn't have, you know, all of these number of things. Like nobody's thinking about that as much as I am.
Mhm.
And so realizing that and kind of coming to grips with it and being able to move forward is really freeing,
Right.
but
But-
it's hard to do.
It is very hard to do, and I would say without God, it's going to be a very long, rocky, bumpy, very harsh road
Yeah.
to kind of release those things. And I find that people allow those things to become their identity, which is ironic because they're in much pain over it. But the existence of something that's in the past is relative to whatever I'm thinking about it. So that your experience isn't affecting me because I wasn't there and never will be, and I mean, it affects me in the sense that it's affecting you, but it doesn't affect me directly. And it's very similar to an extent that I think it shouldn't be affecting you to that extent, because it's as removed almost as I am to you. Because it happened in some time period, but it's not happening to you now.
Right.
So how moving past it is not validating your feelings. Unfortunately, we can see that people, psychologists will admit that they've never cured anybody. A psychiatrist will admit that. Who have you cured? Nobody. Get on the internet and watch videos, and they'll be asked that, and they'll be like, I've never had a curable case. But God can heal everything, all things. And people don't want to talk about forgiveness. People don't want to talk about it's ironic to me that people who are in trauma are miserable, but they don't want to get rid of it. They say they do, but then as soon as you start walking them through that process, they don't want it. Yeah. And I've known some people, this isn't all people, but I've known some people who getting rid of trauma is so scary for them because they don't know who they are without it.
Yeah, after you walk with it for so long. And like really just carry it.
You carry it.
I know that about myself, even that like there are a lot of things that I choose to carry that I don't have to. And then I've been able to put down, and then I pick back up and like go back and forth, and it's like a constant, kind of reshaping and trying and wanting to, everybody, I think walks with some of that stuff.
But you strip those things away, and you strip away the victim, and what you're left with is responsibility. What are you going to do about it? Your psychiatrist or your therapist, they can't actually do anything about it. They can't get in your brain and shuffle around your synapses and do that sort of thing. This is something that's in your control to an extent.
Yeah.
I do think that the reason why I can let things go so easily, and I wouldn't say I've always been that way, but the reason why I can let things go so easily is because I know I'm not the one in control of my circumstances. I was talking to a buddy of mine, and we had a little different idea of who we are as individuals. I as a Christian, I don't believe I deserve anything other than eternal damnation, right?
Right.
That's what I deserve. So anything short of that is God's grace, mercy on my life. And that allows me to go through life with a relative optimism that says, bad things happen. God can orchestrate those things in a good way. He can certainly channel it in a good way through me if I'm willing to accept that.
Yeah.
If I'm not willing to accept it, what good is there in it?
Right. We watched a documentary kind of thing on Corrie ten Boom.
Oh yeah.
Last night.
Yeah.
at a Bible study.
Oh, cool.
That we go to, and so it was like problem after problem after problem, where afterwards, like she saw God's hand working in the things that were the most difficult. Like one of the things she talks about are like the fleas and the conditions and like where she was living. But what that did on the opposite side is it kept the guards from actually going in there and spending any time in there. So then they were able to read scripture, they were able to pray, and they were able to do so many things that they wouldn't have been able to do otherwise. And so the thing that she would look at as like difficulty or trial or whatever actually was God's sovereignty trying to make that situation the best possible, so that other people could find Jesus and other people can actually receive salvation through that.
And So one of the things I'm learning through kind of this, like working through this, it's something that I naturally gravitate towards in people who are struggling in their business. One of the reason why really I feel a lot of empathy, because they do it to themselves. And this is the piece that's so hard, is, you know, especially defensiveness, or, you know, losing clients because you're willing to go head to head with them. And I'm sitting there thinking, you're asking me for help to be successful, but you don't want to give up pride and all of those things. A strong sense of justice, which is usually also a traumatic response and a trigger, is, you know, somebody who has a very high level of justice to the point they're a little bit blind to and have a little less grace in certain areas. You know, they'll say that's not fair, which is a word I don't let anybody in my family use. Because I think, you know, again, to go back to where I've come from in a spiritual sense, I actually believe that to be untrue. That the only unfair thing that's ever happened is a man dying for the sins of wicked people on a cross for things he didn't commit.
Right.
That's unfair.
Yep.
It is unfair that I don't experience that same separation from God.
Right.
And so as far as life being not fair, well, it isn't fair in a gracious, loving way. It's not fair. And that I'm not getting what I deserve. And even those who are alive today who are not believers, they're still not getting what they deserve right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, God's grace and love is being shown to all men. He says that in Scripture. It rains on the just and on the unjust. God is good, and he's loving even to people who don't deserve it, which is everyone.
Yeah, there's common grace everywhere.
And he went and rejected his own son so that that could happen. His son who did nothing wrong. And so, like, what?
And it's odd, like, especially even in the Christian culture, where believers will blame God for something, so for a trial, as if he's not being fair to them.
Right.
When if they got exactly what they wanted or what they feel like they deserve, it probably would have been the work of the enemy.
Yeah.
Just giving them whatever they want, numbing them, soothing them to sleep, you know, lullabying them to sleep.
Right.
So because without trial, they're not like.
Well, I mean, life shows you that comfort produces apathy. Apathy produces, you know, and you even see that in people's health. You know, they talk about sitting. They talk about not experience enough stress on your body actually makes you less healthy.
Right.
That's why we exercise. That's why we would do a cold plunge or a sauna, or none of those things are comfortable. But they strengthen your body. And even Paul says he buffets his body. But it strengthens your body. Being comfortable in any sense produces something that is not healthy.
Right.
And that's been shown over and over again. I don't need the Bible to show you that. I mean, that is just, that's
even
science.
Even some vehicles are designed to be driven under pressure.
Right.
Like, I've heard that said about, like, when I've been talking to guys about upgrading to like a diesel or upgrading to a 250 or 350.
Right.
You know, specifically to pull with it.
Right.
You know, the problem is if you don't actually give them some like difficulty, then they're not going to operate properly.
Right.
I've heard that about like the Porsche 911.
Right.
Like that people have literally said the problem with the 911 is that people buy them and drive them like they would a Honda Civic.
So I had
like, instead of just driving them the way that they were designed to be driven.
I had a 97 Acura Integra, and it got decent gas mileage. That was still when cars were getting good gas mileage and didn't have CVT transmissions. And that car would get less gas mileage if I drove it more conservatively.
Oh, wow.
And Hondas are meant to drive at a high RPM. And when they're driving most efficiently, is not being reckless, but it is driving at a slightly higher RPM. and it's actually putting things under less stress. But we also know that if you let a house sit unoccupied, like I can sit in this house and occupy it, have AC, heat running, and not do any updates on it, it would say stay relatively the way it is over a pretty long period of time, 20 years. But if we left this house and it sat empty for 20 years,
Yeah.
it would not be the same place if you came back. And the reason is that the environment is harsh on it. If you leave a car sitting for 20 years, you'll be lucky if it starts. But I can have the same car for 20 years and it runs great.
Yeah.
And things are meant to be under a certain level of stress in order to function at its highest level.
Yep.
And in some cases,
Especially believers.
this is why we talk about breaking something in, because a vehicle or shoes or anything doesn't work at its best until it's got a few miles on it.
Yeah, that's right.
And so, God puts us through stress. Why? I mean, James talks about, James chapter 1, that we experience trials to produce patience.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
The more things you go through, the more resilient you become.
Yep.
I think that's why, we'll hear about people who started out impoverished and then they end up being millionaires. They've got a drive that nobody else understands.
Right. Whereas if you were given millions,
It's so much harder.
it's kind of the complete opposite.
And
like first generation versus second versus third
Right.
generation businesses. Like we were talking to Cameron about. I mean,
Yeah.
it's eventually down the road. I mean, it's going to be difficult for somebody
Yeah.
to have the same drive
Yeah.
that him and his father had.
And Christ talks about that. He says it's
Yeah.
harder for a rich man. It would be harder for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than a rich man entering the kingdom of heaven.
Right.
And he demonstrates that through the man who comes to him and says, what should I do to be saved? And he goes, give all your goods to the poor and follow me. And he was like, I can't do that.
Yeah. And what he was saying obviously was not, it's wrong to have these things. It's
No.
wrong to be successful. It's wrong to have wealth or whatever. But
he was exposing it.
exactly.
He was
Exposing
exposing
his heart. Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yep. Exposing his heart. What he treasured in
Yeah.
over treasuring the gospel.
And if we're God's child, we're going to experience that all the time. God exposing our heart. And
Or we should.
changing
Most
us.
believers probably don't.
Well,
Most
I
believers
would-
probably are coasting.
I don't think it says whom the Lord loves he chastens, and I don't think you can be a Christian and not be chastened.
Yeah.
Like if you experience nothing in your life that changes you and alters your thinking, and I'd be like, I don't know how God is not doing that for you. I think that it's his grace that does that, and if you're not
Yeah.
experiencing that, I'd be concerned.
Yeah.
But I actually was watching a podcast of he's a neurologist, I think. He's a brain doctor.
Mm-hmm.
I won't mention his name because he's very high profile, and I don't know what all that would entail. But he was actually talking about parts of the brain and the ability to kind of heal your brain and experience relief from trauma and things like that. And he actually mentioned that Christians
Mm-hmm.
are really good at it.
Really?
Yeah. And he didn't get deep into that, but it was funny because I was like, yeah, I could see that, because Christians get through trauma in a biblical sense, not just because they have Christ dwelling in them, the Spirit of God dwelling in them, but because their theology
Yeah.
alters what they think of that trauma.
Yeah. There's a framework.
It's not
for-
debilitating.
Yeah. Framework for forgiveness, a framework for
Yep.
perseverance, and a framework for, seeing the
Yeah.
bigger picture, the eternal picture
Yeah.
of 10,000 years from now, and instead of 1 year, instead
Right.
of 1 week.
Right. And what
Yeah,
God's
kinda-
truly done for them.
Exactly.
And the ability to accept something as being good
Mm-hmm.
and turning it around. And he talked about there are other people who are just really skilled at it, not even people who are necessarily Christians,
Mm-hmm.
but they're just really skilled at viewing failure or bad circumstances as being a springboard
Yeah.
for success
Right.
or for making them stronger.
Yeah. Well, because there are those two types of people that failure will either destroy you
Yeah,
and you'll just walk away, or failure is going to fuel you.
right.
And then so when it fuels you, it's most of the time it's exactly what you needed to push you to the next level.
Right.
Because without that, later on you would look at that as one of the key pivotal moments where you realized, one or two different things you could point to that really pushed you to the next level.
Yeah.
And so that was one of the things in, kind of the kingdom-minded business, framework that, I was kind of wrestling through with like how to structure a business to be kingdom-minded,
Mm-hmm.
and one of those places was like capacity, either like time capacity, profit, mental capacity, just
Right.
just the capacity to handle whatever you're dealing with
Right.
in whatever situation you're in.
Yeah.
And structuring your business just the way that you would structure your life, so that if God's going to use you, then you have to be available.
Right.
And being available means that you set things up to where maybe not profitability wise,
Yeah.
where you may not be able to give
Right.
like a bunch, but setting things up to where you have the capacity, the mental capacity and the time to be able to
Right.
serve the kingdom
Yeah.
somehow, some way.
And a lot of that, I think comes from your ability to be honest and transparent with yourself. Also, having good mentorship and network. I look at a lot of people, and in this day and age with social media and other things, people are being taught that they can do whatever they want to do. And from a standpoint of, I would like to be a doctor, so I can be a doctor. But, that individual could never get through school.
Yeah. Well, that or you end up, you're married, you have a couple of kids, like how in the world are you going to go back to school for
Right.
that?
So you
Or-
don't have the ability to manage well.
Yeah.
Now I say all this because one of the things that I really believe in is that you can overcome your deficiencies by hiring people who are efficient in those areas, right? But it still takes a level of management. And there are
Right.
people all over the place saying, hey, you can be a multimillionaire, you can be a billionaire. They're saying things like that and not giving them the whole story.
Right.
Like, you can't let go of some past trauma, but can you handle the weight of the potential of being sued every day? You know what I'm saying? And there
Right.
are certain industries where that's a very real thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think that we don't do anyone a service by telling them they can do whatever they want to do. I believe they can do whatever God wants them to do.
Exactly.
And
anything that they're called to do.
And I think God has given anyone the skills to do what He's called them to do.
Yeah. If
And-
He's not already given them the skills, then He's giving them the skills now
And He'll give them the tools they need.
until they get to the point
Yeah.
where they need to
Right.
execute.
And so I think that's a big part of this kind of building a kingdom mindset business, that you have to be very honest and transparent about what your business is going to look like.
Yeah.
And then how I'm going to take what that looks like and make it what it needs to be in order for me to have a kingdom mindset
Right.
in that business. And that I can't, you can't just sit here and say, here's a framework. You'd have to have a framework for every single individual because they're so different. And I have a buddy of mine he's in construction as well. He's actually a decent leader, but he struggles with some details, and he struggles with just doing certain things that need to be done.
Yeah.
And I can work with him through that. But I see him as being somebody who has a lot of potential if he was willing to like release control over some things.
Yeah.
That
Isn't that always the case?
yeah, which is clearly, and that is hinged on his ability to let go of those things.
For
I
sure,
can't
yeah.
help him unless he does.
Right.
And so I'm always, when thinking about, how I'm going to make my business structured in a way that is kingdom oriented, whatever that looks like for me, I think follow the passions God's given you. That's one thing. What do I want to do with my business that is kingdom minded?
Yeah.
And then structure it around that.
Yeah.
God's
What does a
given you-
touchdown look like?
Yeah, what does
You
it
know?
look like?
And you don't ever we're constantly getting touchdowns. We're not looking for just one.
Yeah.
There's no finish line.
It's sometimes
as a believer in general.
Yeah.
I mean, and especially whoa. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
Especially in business, I mean, unless you're going to get to a point where you just shut it down, there's never really a finish line, because eventually you're going to either sell or you're going to pass it on or you're going to
The infinite gain.
Yep, exactly. But as you're building, I mean, the only thing, I guess, or framework that you could do is build something that's repeatable. Whether that be the sales process, whether that be the estimating process, whether that be, whatever that looks like, you should be able to repeat that process as you go, so that every job looks different or every client looks different and what you do for them looks a little bit different.
Yeah.
But it's repeatable because you have a system in place that when you show up to quote a job or when you answer the phone to quote a client, that process looks the same.
Yeah.
And even though the yard you're about to mow looks different, or the land you're about to clear, whatever, the house
Yeah.
you're about to build is different, that there is a repeatable, anticipatable process
Right.
that your team can take so that you have the end in mind.
So that takes a lot of drive. It takes a lot of energy to do that. And I would
Yeah.
always remind somebody, if you don't have a reason to do it, you're not going to do it.
Right.
The reason can't be money. Money is a metric. We use money to measure our success.
Yeah.
But ironically, using, if you look at any billionaire, well, there might be one billionaire, but you look at a lot of billionaires, they are in it for the game. They love the game.
Mm-hmm.
If they were only in it for the money, they would probably have quit at the point at which they could just stick their money in the stock market and live off the interest.
Yeah.
Because how much money do you need?
Yeah.
If you had $1 billion in the bank, what do you need? Exactly.
You think they started out looking for the money?
I think sometimes they're motivated that way. I think it's security. A lot of times, we talked about if somebody's poor, they have this drive, like somebody who's starving and looking for the next meal. But those people that you would think at about between 25 and 100 million would start to realize this isn't going anywhere.
Yeah.
At what point,
But really, it's not going to change. It's not going to change their life at all.
well, if
Or how much of it do you think is driven by having a goal, and then once you get there, it's that goal is not good enough anymore.
right,
That
right. Where
whatever.
does it end?
Yeah, whatever.
But even then, it becomes about a game and a metric. It's like, well, we'll go to 200 million, which is not a big jump from 100 million. We're going to go from 200 million to 500 million, and they become just bars to shoot for and see how fast we can get there. See if we can do it. And it becomes about the game. And a lot of guys just, you know, they're obsessed with that. Some people are philanthropic. They're motivated to do well because they have other ambitions. I think that's a piece that a lot of people get lost in. They start working because they need food on the table.
Right.
And you know how that goes.
Oh yeah.
And you do something because you can, because you need something to happen today.
Yeah.
You work at, you know, KFC or Panera as a second job just to put food on the table.
Yeah.
And you can be very much motivated to just be like, I have a responsibility here to my family.
Right.
And I can't let my 4.5-year-old starve. And so you know, buckle up, but there will be a point at which there's no risk of your 4.5-year-old starving. There's no risk of you not being able to pay a bill.
Yeah.
There's no risk of you not being able to pay for insurance or a hospital bill or and so when you get there, what then?
Yep.
And I feel like a lot of people, they go through kind of this life-altering moment where they shift their focus from what it used to be to, like I said, I think some guys shift solely on the game. They just love the game.
Yeah.
They get addicted to the game. And some people, they shift their focus to something that's more mission-oriented. I think Elon Musk is mission-oriented. You know, a guy that's worth $1 trillion should be able to stop.
Yeah, just
right?
do whatever he wants now.
Yeah.
But he kind of is.
But what he wants to do is what he's doing.
Exactly.
I don't know what his plans are. He says it's to go to Mars and live on Mars, but I think that a really smart guy like that is not really doing that, but maybe he is. And maybe he just loves learning. It's clear he must love learning. He's like the head engineer. And so these guys find a passion. I think, you know, Bill Gates has a passion outside of all the money that he makes.
Yeah.
And I think that it's not good.
Yeah.
But
and, well, and I
but it is a why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think a lot of people, once they cross that threshold of, you know, I've got to put food on the table, I've got to make sure we're secure, I've got to make sure, you know, like all of these security kind of, you know, alarm bells are going off. And as they're turning those alarm bells off, you know, once they get to the point of like, hey, we're going to be fine. Like
Nobody's chasing me.
Everything's good. Nobody's chasing me anymore. And even to a certain degree, like, you know, even others that are like chasing some of the same things, it's like you either stop feeling the pressure of the competition, or, you know, the pressure of the competition isn't really pressure anymore because you're just far from it causing a problem.
Well,
you know,
one of the things I talk about with business people all the time is you shouldn't look too much to your competition.
Yeah.
You know, if you get too obsessed with your competition, you'll always be behind them because you'll be late in the game because you're copying what they're doing. And I think too, it produces a level of stress. I know one guy, every time somebody in his business comes into the market, I get a screenshot of their business, and, you know, I'm like, okay, whatever, you know, you've got a stable business. What are you worried about?
Yeah.
And, you know, you're like, well, he does this and he does that. And I'm like, dude, you don't have time for this, you know? Focus on your own business.
And he may have been looking at him as he was building up, like putting together his plan, wanting to be like that.
Absolutely.
And so, like on the opposite side, it may have been a shift that he made due to the fact that he saw, you know, the guy that's now worried about him, you know.
Yeah.
Like, well, it's like this round robin of like worried about each other, you know, kind of thing.
I think aspiring to be like someone who's in your line of work, who's significantly higher up, is great. And that's why I think mentorship is important. You need somebody coming in and saying, yeah, I've done this, I've been here, done that. You need to go about this differently, you know, because you can't see, you're in the trench, you can't see what's above.
Well, that, and you kind of need to be shaken up from time to time.
You do.
And whether that's a real threat or it's just a perceived threat
Yeah.
by the competition, if you're not, then you're not growing and you're not changing and you're not going to do everything that you have to do in order to be what you need to be in your industry.
Well, that's why you need to be chasing something.
Right.
And it shouldn't be your competitor,
Exactly.
in my opinion. You need to have a vision for why you're doing what you're doing.
Right. And that's where I was kind of going earlier, was like, once you turn those alarm bells off, if there's not something that you're like chasing, which isn't competition, it isn't, whatever, because all of those things, as soon as they go away, like your purpose is gone.
Right.
Because like if you're chasing your competition, God forbid you ever outrun them.
Right.
Because what the heck are you going to do then? Like, what are you going to slow down and let them get ahead again so you can chase them? Like, obviously you're not going to do that.
Well, some people do
So then-
do that cat and mouse game, which
Yeah.
is, Simon Sinek talks about that as well in his Infinite Game, where he's like, what do you do then? You're number one, but you'll be number two tomorrow, maybe number three. I mean, it's just, this is not the end game.
Yeah.
And I think for me, like, I think it needs to be more than just, I'm going to have a high moral standard in my business and I'm going to do something that reflects God's morality and his, that it has structure and it has, it cares about, these are all things that should be happening, right?
Yeah.
But there needs to be a mission, a direction, something you're after, something you want to do.
Yeah, exactly.
And this is why people, very successful people, have a lot going on outside their business typically. And they have hobbies or they have philanthropic activities.
Yeah. That's one of the things that has shifted for me over the last, probably 6 months.
Yeah.
Is, we're probably, just in the, if we were to look just in the bookkeeping space, like we're probably in the top 10 to 20%, or so.
Yeah.
But in the tax accounting space, we're like under 1%.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because of how huge they're,
Yeah.
accounting firms are out there.
Yeah.
But simply because we focus more on bookkeeping and, monthly financials and yearly financials and those kind of things.
Yeah.
Like in that space, the difficulty has been like, as we've grown and as like, obviously I feel competition, like we lose opportunities all the time, but like my bottom line doesn't feel the competition anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not like fighting as much for that because we are to the size that we are. Like the difficulty is like, what else is there to this, and so like thinking kingdom minded, like that's kind of been something I've been shaping over the last 3 to 6 months of like, what does this even look like?
Yeah.
Because all that's done, like I've told you, like, doing so many house projects, and like I might as well kind of moonlight as a contractor, or like now we're like diving head first into like bow hunting, and deer this season, like me and my son.
Yeah.
And so like we're like geeking out on, shooting and what arrows we're going to use and the poundage and like
Right.
how to like
Yeah.
dial everything in and
Yeah.
like, how do you even find a deer in the woods,
Mhm.
kind of thing. And so
Yeah.
like we're like, we're finding other things outside of just work that are like giving purpose to
Right.
to life and
Yeah.
all those things. But
Yeah, and you may find, and this is a thing that each person has to decide, you may find that your purpose is maintaining what you have now in order to fill your time with other things.
yeah,
Or it may be to grow your business and use your business as a medium for whatever philanthropic ambition you have.
yeah, exactly.
And again, that's where I'm always asking people, why are you doing what you're doing? Why do you want to do this?
yeah,
And a lot of people will be like, well, I can make this much a week. And I'll be like, all right.
And then
but
what?
you're going to be exhausted. You know, is it worth it to be just like way more tired than you are now? What's motivating that? Because, you know, if you own your own business, everybody knows it's not a cakewalk.
Right.
And some of us,
Everybody
Like
who's done
that.
it knows it's not a cakewalk.
Yeah. it's not. And that's not to scare anybody away from it, but it's to say that what do you want to do is almost a more important decision than saying, I can make this much.
Yeah, it's got to be worth the cost,
Yeah.
because there is a cost.
Yeah.
And there's a cost on family relations. There's a cost financially. There's
Yeah.
a cost everywhere. There's
Yeah.
a cost on time. There's
Yeah.
a cost on freedom.
Yeah.
You know, I've seen so many posts about like I left my 9-to-5 job so that I can work 80 hours a week. You know, like doing whatever. Or like I didn't want somebody to tell me when I could go to lunch. So now I'm so busy I can't have lunch. You know, or like I can't even take a lunch break. You know, and so like there's something to that. You know, and obviously that's so relatable because it's the experience of, you know, a lot of entrepreneurs that are actually growing and doing something.
Yeah.
You know.